Hi friends, Shay here. I'm really sorry for the bad lighting, but I just found out that they dropped the Goodreads Choice Award nominees. So I'm going to hop in and I'm going to look at them. I'm going to do a screen recording so you'll see the angle change here in a second. But really quickly before we dive in, I want to talk about a couple of predictions that I think we'll see for historical fiction. I have kind of been peeking at their best of 2023 lists that they kind of keep going all year. So some of the things that I think we'll see on it that I haven't read yet are The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride, which also just won Book of the Year for Barnes & Noble. Clytemnestra I haven't gotten to, and I think that's going to be on the list. Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. She tends to always do really well when she has a book released that year. The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman I think will be there. And then some that I have read that I think will be on the list are Wayward by Amelia Hart, Homecoming by Kate Morton, London Seance Society, Covenant of Water, because Oprah blew that book up. I would love to see The Echo of Old Books on the list. I don't know if it's going to make it on there, though. The Wind Knows My Name by Isabel Allende, Secret Life of Flora Lee. That was a Barnes & Noble book club pick, so I think that'll hit the list. So there's a few quick predictions before we dive into this list. Also, I'm going to briefly talk about the fact that they pulled two categories, and they're two categories that I think needed more love anyway, so I hate that they pulled them. That is the comics and graphic novel category, and then the children's category, which is a shame to see both of those go. Being someone who's very passionate about comics, graphic novels, and manga, I'm really sad to see that category go. And someone who is a firm believer that Kids Lit has a time and a place, it should have a list of its own as well. So let's go ahead and dive in. We'll react to this live together, and I'll see you guys in the other, you'll see me down in the corner here in just a sec. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this list. Let's briefly go over the categories. So we've got fiction, historical fiction, mystery, thriller, and romance. None of those are surprising. Romantasy is a new category that we weren't sure we were ever going to see, so I'm surprised to see it. And have children's and graphic novels go away. That's clearly a money grab, it feels like. Fantasy, science fiction, horror, young adult fantasy, young adult fiction, debut novel, nonfiction, memoirs and autobiography, history and biography, and then humor. I am surprised the humor category stayed. I would have pulled that and left something like graphic novels or kids. But let's see. So this is 4, 8, 12, 15 categories instead of 17. So let's go in. Let's go ahead and vote in the opening round. So best fiction. Okay, so Pineapple Street by Jenny Jackson. I thought this might be on the historical fiction list. So surprised to see it here. Fiction is something that I do read fairly prevalently. Oh, and there's Hello Beautiful, so I might not have to read that one. And sadly, I have not read any of these yet. Oh, goodness. So I won't be voting in this category, but surprised to see some of these. I'm guessing Yellowface is going to win this one just because it's been such a big book this year. The Invisible Hour is here too. Interesting. Tom Lake was a Barnes & Noble book club pick as well as a Reese's book club pick, so I could see that one performing pretty well and getting to the top 10 at least. Big Swiss was big early in the year. I know Barnes & Noble has an exclusive edition of that one. The Bee Sting by Paul Murray it was nominated at least for the Booker. I don't think this one won. It might have. I don't remember. Shark Heart I've seen everywhere because of the beautiful cover. The Wishing Game was on Book of the Month, so I could see that one doing well. Jojo Moyes tends to do well. I haven't read her in years. But yeah, I haven't read any of these, and that's kind of a shame. That makes me really sad. Okay, historical fiction. Let's go. This is the important one for this video. Hang the Moon, which I have already read. I didn't like it. I DNF'd it, actually, but I expect it'll do well because it's Jeanette Walls. Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. This one is a new one for me. I've not heard anything about this. Debut about 3 women whose lives are bound together by a long-lost letter, a mother's love, and a secret network of women fighting for the right to choose. Okay. Sounds decent. So that is very exciting. Secret Book of Flora Lee, and I expected to see this one on the list because it was Book of the Month and a Barnes & Noble pick. I did read this. I gave it 4 stars. It was a solid historical fiction. Jessamine Ward, Let Us Descend. I kind of expected to see this one. I haven't read it yet. But I thought it might not because it didn't have enough traction from the year. Because it just came out, but that doesn't tend to matter. Did you hear about Kitty Carr? Again, a Reese's Book Club pick and a Book of the Month pick. I haven't gotten to reading this one yet, so you'll see me read that in this vlog. The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. I thought this one would be on the fiction list rather than the historical fiction list, so that's a little surprising. Writing down all the ones I need to read. And Go As a River by Shelley Reed. I thought this is one that might hit the list. But yeah. Beyond That, The Sea by Lauren Spence Ash. I don't know too much about this, but it looks very World War II. Sweeping, tenderhearted love story, Beyond That, The Sea by Laura Spence. Ash tells the story of 2 families living through World War II on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. Why so much World War II historical fiction? There are so many other parts of history that I would love to read more about. Covenant of Water, no surprise there. Oh, yay, the Echo of Old Books is here. That's going to be my vote for now. Because that's been my favorite historical fiction I've read this year. Oh, everything just shifted. Okay, hold on. I hate when that happens. Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. Expected to see that one. The Keeper of Hidden Books by Madeline Martin. We'll open this in another tab, and then we'll look at it in a minute. Let's see. We talked about all those. Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. Expected to see that. Wayward. Expected to see that. Have read this one. Haven't read this one. The Parrot's Daughter by Kristen Harmel. I got this one as an arc from work. I just haven't gotten to reading it yet because I'm the literal worst at doing that. So I will definitely pick up that one. Lady Chan's Circle of Women. This was a Book of the Month pick, so again, not surprised to see it on this list. Banyan Moon by Tao Tai. This is one that I know Barnes & Noble had, I believe, as a Discover pick. I'm going to open that in a new tab, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. The House of Eve by Cicada Johnson. Excited to see Cicada Johnson back on the list. Yellow Wife is the other book that they wrote that I know hit the list, so I'm excited to see House of Eve here. I haven't gotten to reading that one yet. What I'm really surprised I'm not seeing is Atalanta by Jennifer Saint. I fully expected to see that one on this list. River Sing Me Home. Again, I believe this was a Book of the Month pick and one of the Good Morning America ones, so not surprised. And then North Woods by Daniel Mason. Okay. I know Barnes & Noble did some features with this particular one, so not surprised to see that on the list. So let's look at these other 2 before we move on to other categories. So The Keeper of Hidden Books. Heartwarming story about the power of books to bring us together, inspired by a true story of the underground library in World War II Warsaw. Okay, I could see why people would love that one. And then Banyan Moon. This, I believe, features... is it Korean? Vietnam. It was Vietnam. So this, again, it's a different piece of history, so I'm excited to see that it hit the list. Okay, so my reaction to the historical fiction list is I predicted about half, a little bit more is what I thought I'd see. There's a few surprises on here, but not anything like that's like offensive or anything. So I'm decently excited for the list. There's a few more like perfectly World War II ones on this list than I wanted, but there's that. I don't read mystery thrillers much, so let's go ahead and skip to romance. Okay, Elsie Silver, Powerless. The Right Move by Liz Tomford. We fully expected to see those 2. In the Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros is a little bit of a surprise. But again, Rebecca Yarros has been blowing up this year, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised. Final Offer by Lauren Asher, I expected. Pucking Around by Emily Rath. That makes me so happy. This is a book that has been blowing up with my friends. We planned on reading it later this year all together. And so I'm excited to see that one on the list. And I know my friend that's reading the romance category for this round, she's going to be very excited that one's on the list because she's already read it. Happy Place by Emily Henry. No one's surprised. That one will most likely win. Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I read that. I enjoyed it. Clearly, I'm very behind on writing reviews, so don't look at that too closely. Catherine Center, Hello Stranger. Catherine Center tends to usually make the list, so that doesn't surprise me at all. 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I've been seeing everybody read. Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld is interesting, though, because it's not actually well, it's romance based, but it doesn't zone in romance in our bookstore. It zones in fiction. So this is a little bit surprising to see on the romance list, if I'm honest. I expected to see it on the fiction list, but I didn't expect to see it in the romance category. So that's a bit of a surprise for me. A Long Time Coming by Megan Quinn. We love to see a Megan Quinn. She's an indie author, so anytime we see an indie author popping up on the list, we're happy. Same with Emily Rath. The Christina Lauren of the Year, The True Love Experiment. No surprises here. I love that King of Pride is on this list. I'm voting for King of Pride because I freaking love it. Let's see, Love Theoretically was also pretty good. Wildfire. I expected to see Icebreaker, not Wildfire, but I'm not surprised. Hannah Grace deserves to be on the list. She's had a bang up year. Things We Hide from the Light, I'm not surprised is here after its showing last year with the first book in the series. The Long Game by Elena Armas, again, not surprised to see that there. I've heard the tropes in this one are something I like. You Again by Kate Goldbeck. I've been seeing this book everywhere, and the cover's stunning, but I don't really know too much about it. So, and obviously Abby Jimenez being on the list. Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune, considering the previous book was on the list, it tracks that this one would be as well. So, yeah, that is a pretty solid romance list with some surprises in there that make me very happy. So, I think the person curating their romance list is doing a little bit better. The only exception is the Curtis Sittenfeld here. So, sorry, Izzy, you're going to have to read something that I don't even know if I would read. Okay, let's check out this romantasy category real fast. Okay, um, Fire in the Flesh by Jennifer Armentrout, not surprised. Zodiac Academy, which again is indie. So this is one that's going to have more indies, which makes me really happy. But this is where they put freaking Fourth Wing, so that's going to win no matter what. Oh gosh. Bewitched by Laura Thalassa is really good. Fall of Ruin and Wrath. Again, how many Armentrouts are going to be on this freaking list? The new Carrie Maniscalco, not surprised. A Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stacia Stark. Haven't heard of that one. Scarlet St. Clair, not surprised. There's 2 Carissa Broadbents on here, so again, not surprised by that. The new Hannah Witten series. The new Charlie Holmberg series. Okay. Dawn of Onyx, I've seen a lot. Rule of the Aurora King. I have that on my list to read. And the new fantasy romance from K.A. Tucker in that series. The Jasad Heir. My friends who have read this have really loved it, so it's one I'm going to be checking out. And then The Coven by Harper Woods. Just to be contrary, I really did enjoy Fourth Wing, but at the same time, everybody's going to vote for Fourth Wing here, so I'm going to vote for Bewitched by Laura Thalassa, because I thought it was a solid book that deserves a little more love and a little more attention. Assistant to the Villain is going to perform very well here as well, because that's been a big book this year. Let's hop over to fantasy. Okay. So, they put Atalanta over here. Interesting. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that, because that's clearly a historical fiction. So, the fact that it's in fantasy makes me worry about who curated this list. The Witch King by Martha Wells I expected to see. Starling House I expected to see. Swordcatcher I expected. Same with Stoneblind. What? And Clytemnestra? What is going on over here? They messed up this category. I am so sorry, fantasy friends. Like, they pulled so much historical fiction into your category. I am so sorry. The Unmaking of June Farrow zones is regular fiction in our bookstore, so probably more historical. The new Mark Lawrence, which I've heard you either love or you hate. Bookshops and Bone Dust, not surprised. Really enjoyed that one. Again, Victory City, that's straight up fiction, so that's surprising. Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, not surprised to see that there. Same with Day of Fallen Night. Ink Blood Sister Scribe has been a big book this year. Venko is straight up fiction. Last Tale of the Flower Bride, We Zone is fiction in our bookstore, so that's surprising. The new V.E. Schwab, not surprised. Encyclopedia of Fairies, not surprised. Will of the Many, not surprised. Amina Al-Sarafi, not surprised. My vote's going to go to Trust of the Emerald Sea. Say what you want about Brandon Sanderson, but this book is The Princess Bride if Buttercup went after Wesley. So being a big stan of The Princess Bride ever since I was tiny, that's where my vote's going to go. Okay, sci-fi. Let's see what they did here. Chain Gang All-Stars. No way. That's, again, straight up fiction. So what are they doing here? The Ferryman. Isn't that horror? Sci-fi horror, maybe? Future by Naomi Alderman. Not surprised. The new Martha Wells. The new Pierce Brown. Hey, what are you... This list. Oh, my goodness. And then the new John Scalzi, like the new Anne Leckie. Some of these make sense, but others I'm like, what on earth? And there is a straight up horror category, so I don't know why The Ferryman isn't in straight up horror. This is a category I don't really read. But again, The Rouge is straight up fiction. Vampires of El Norte is zones as fiction. Same with Our Share of Night. Lone Women. I mean... The Stephen King's probably going to win that category, or the Grady Hendrix. I would love to see it go to something like Tananarive Due, or T. Kingfisher, or Sylvia Moreno Garcia, of course. But let's head over to debut novel. See if some of my predictions ended up there. Wayward is also here. Some of the ones I saw in fiction are also over here. And this one is also in historical fiction. Same with Banyan Moon and Pineapple Street. Ooh, I'm happy to see the Bandit Queens here. This one was nominated for the Women's Prize earlier in the year. River Sing Me Home. Did you hear about Kitty Carr? Okay. So the debut category has a lot of straight up fiction in it, which is surprising. But yeah. I mean, the list could be worse for debut, so I'll take that. And then the other categories I don't really read too much from, so I don't think you'll get too much from me for that. So, yeah. Very interesting. So, I'm now going to get my whole list together of what I need to read, and then I will start reading these things, and we will go from there. So, of the 20 on the list, I have currently read 6. So I have 14 books that I have to cram in over the next few weeks before everything is announced. So you're going to see a lot of historical fiction coming up from me. I mean, you're seeing this after the fact, of course. But yeah, it's time for me to dive into these and read as many of them as I can. Like I said, I've cast my vote. I hope it sticks around. And I hope a lot of the ones I've already read stick around for the final round. Because once the final round comes around, I'll come back. We'll chat again. And then I may eliminate some at that point due to how much time I have. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I have 14 books I have to cram in the next 3 weeks. So considering that's holiday and I'm working Dragonsteel Con, this is going to be a lot of my reading time. So I'm probably not going to get much manga read the next little while unless I need breaks. But yeah, this is a lot. So we'll see how things go. And this is going to be a very interesting list to kind of work my way through. Again, I've already cast my vote. I think The Keeper of Old Books deserves to make it to the finals. I might change my mind once I've read some of these others. But I have a feeling a lot of the ones I've already read are ones that will be in the top 10. So I'm going to read as many of these as I can and let you guys know my thoughts as I go, obviously. But that's where we're starting. Happy Goodreads Choice Awards season. Hello friends, so we are going to take a little trip to the library because I don't want to spend a fortune on books I may not like. So we are going to head to my teeny tiny local library that doesn't have state funding right now. and see what we can get off the shelves for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I've got my list with me. I have 6 that I've read so far. The two with the highest ratings, or highest number of ratings, I should say, I've already read. So I think I've already read the winner. Honestly, if I'm calling it now, it's going to be Covenant of Water, because Oprah blew it up on TikTok and it was everywhere. And yeah, so I have a high feeling that that will be the winner. But I still want to see what other books are out there, because right now my current favorite, which is The Echo of Old Books, is on the lower end of ratings right now. I would love to see more people read it. I think it's a fantastic one. Again, like with a lot of historical fiction, it is going to be very white in its storytelling. And it does center around the time frame of World War II, but it doesn't throw the war in your face, we should say. It's kind of what happens to high society while war is brewing across the pond, you could say. So I am very intrigued to see what these other titles have to offer me. The biggest one I'm hoping to find is House of Eve by Cicada Johnson, because that is the next highest rated, ratings number, number of ratings on the list. And that surprises me, honestly. I'm glad for it, because that is a BIPOC author and a BIPOC story. So I love to see that it's getting so many ratings. So I want to read it and get my feelings on it. I have not read Yellow Wife, but all my friends that have said it was gut-wrenching. So I'm in for a interesting and emotional time. There are some others that I'm interested in, and there's 3 of the books that I already own on my TBR. So I have those already. So my whole goal with this is I'm going to try to read the ones with the most ratings first, because that's going to be the biggest indicator of them getting into the finals, I think. So with that, I'm keeping that in mind, and I'm very intrigued to see what's going to end up winning, because this list is very different than I thought it was going to be, as I said. The fact that all the Greek retellings are over in fantasy instead of in fiction, where according to Barnes & Noble, it's supposed to be in fiction because it is historical fiction. Sometimes there's a little magical realism element to that, but it's fiction. It's not fantasy. So the fact that they're all hanging out over in fantasy threw me, because I fully expected to need to read Clytemnestra and Atalanta. I was already prepared for those. I already owned those. And now the list is very different. But there are some things that make me very excited, like Looking for Jane. Apparently this one is based in the 60s about women's rights regards to abortion in Canada. So that's going to be an interesting read at the very least. So that's one I want to prioritize, just because I'm intrigued by the concept. So even if in this vlog I don't get them all read, I think I will read all of them, because I want to get the full scope of the list. Because honestly, we're already upset at Goodreads because they pulled 3 categories technically, and then added one that is a garbage category this year. I hope in future years it's a better list, but the list for this year for Romantasy was clearly thrown in last minute. Yeah, it's just going to be very interesting to see moving forward how things go. Don't usually love to read a ton of historical fiction altogether. Last time I had months to read my list, and that was only 10 books. So I'm trying to cram 14 books in 3 weeks. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I read fast, but historical fiction just is denser and more emotionally investing. So I tend to not be able to read them quite as quick. So I'm very hopeful that if I can't find them physically here, my sweet friend Izzy from Happy For Now, if you aren't familiar with her because you're visiting my channel for the first time, she's always linked down below because we're constantly talking. She has a lot of different libraries that she has cards for. So I can probably check out audios from that, hopefully. Now that the Goodreads list has dropped, I'm afraid a lot of those checkouts are going to go away. But I wanted to see what my own library had in person first before I relied on her cards. So I'll probably go through all of that once I get back home. But yeah, I wanted to take you guys to my teeny tiny library. I think eventually, we're close to getting our own big state-funded library. Because if you aren't aware, when you're in a small rural town like I am, you don't have state-funded libraries. Basically, they have to have 100,000 titles in their building, or they have to have made a certain amount of money in a year for them to qualify for state funding, to get a state-funded library where you get the big, nice libraries. We don't have one right now. There's a nice one in the town I grew up in, a couple towns over. So worst case scenario, I borrow my parents' card and see what I can get from them. But we're in the same online checkout system, and all the online checkouts were very long. Like, some of them were saying up to 6 months for waiting on a checkout. So that's not going to quite work, considering I need to read these by the, you'll be seeing this on the 6th, the 7th. I don't remember. I think the 7th. I'm losing track of days, y'all. Today's the 15th, though. So I need to try to read as many of these as I can. So I just finished at the library. Did I find a single book on that list? No. That is sadly the state of my tiny library. But did I find 5 volumes of manga that I walked out with? Yes. Yes, I did. But that's not today's video. So I'm going to go scour Izzy's cards. She's already kind of sorted through it for me because she's a gem, and see what I can get quickly and get going. Hello. Please pardon the horrible, awful lighting right now. It is late at night on the 27th. I have heard that the next round, like the narrowing down to 10 for the Goodreads, has dropped. I have been doing some reading. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to see what the top 10 actually are. Then I'll tell you about the things that I've read. So let's take this over to in-screen Shay, and then we'll come back and talk here. All right, historical fiction. All right, here is our top 10. Let me close that out. Okay, so Wayward by Amelia Hart, which I've already read, and I fully expected to see on this list. Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese, again, another one that I've read, and I fully expected to be on this list. I think that's going to be our winner, if I'm totally and completely honest. I have not read The Keeper of Hidden Books yet. It's been hard to get a copy of this one, so I'm hoping I can still get it read. So, that's another one I need to track down. Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. I recently just picked up a copy because it is also Book of the Year for Barnes & Noble. So I see this one having a strong showing. I planned on reading it for work anyway, so that's not necessarily a bad thing for me. Looking for Jane, I read recently. We'll talk about in a minute. And same with House of Eve by Cicada Johnson. So again, those weren't surprises that they were in the top 10. And we'll talk about why I think that in the next clip. Lady Tan's Circle of Women, I still need to read, but it's one that I own physically, so that won't be a problem. Echo of Old Books, I'm so happy to see it in the finals. I don't think it will win. I would love it if it did. I just don't see it happening, but this is a fantastic historical fiction, so if you have not read it yet, as of right now, that one is my current top pick. Like, this is the only one I've given 5 stars so far. But these were very close. Did you hear about Kitty Carr? I still need to read. I do own this physically as well. I got it through Book of the Month. So I should be able to read that one as well. And then I have read The Wind Knows My Name, which again, I love Isabel Allende. I will always praise Isabel Allende. This is the only one on this list, I believe, that is a work in translation as well. So I would love to see a work in translation win. This is a fantastic book. I do think Violetta was a little stronger for me personally, but this was still a really solid book. So the ones I have left to read, I only have 4, so that's not too bad. Keeper of Hidden Books, Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, Lady Tan Circle of Women, and Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? So again, I thought that the other one, the Beyond That the Sea, was going to beat this one out, but it didn't. So I will have to switch tactics here. So, with that said, this is the list. This is the top 10. This is the one that I promised I would read. And I have read most of it already. So, that is looking good for me personally. So, with that said, let's talk about the ones that I've already read. And then we will jump into, after that, we'll talk about the 4 I have left to read. Okay, so let's talk about the 2 from the top 10 that I've read since we last chatted. So the first up is Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. I wanted to make sure I got the author right. So this one deals with the underground abortion ring in Canada in like the 60s, 70s time frame, if I'm remembering right. 71, yeah. Anyways, so there's this network of women called the Jane Network, where this gave women an opportunity to decide what to do with their bodies instead of being, forced to carry to term and then either giving up the baby for adoption or whatever. I had very mixed feelings reading this book. I do believe that women deserve a choice in what to do with their bodies. At the same time, I see both sides of the equation here. I'm a firm believer that women deserve the choice and the right. That is not my choice to make for them. But yeah, anyways, I'm not getting into all of that today. But this book was definitely eye-opening at the drastic ways that people resorted to take care of things when they weren't okay with what the government thought they should do with their bodies. So this book is very powerful. You have 3 time frames. You have the 70s time frame, you have one in the 80s, and then you've got one in 2017. I do think this book is very well written, especially for a debut. I'm giving this 4 stars. Again, I think this could have done better if I didn't have all of my feelings muddled up inside it. It's brilliantly written. I can definitely see why people love this one. I think it's a very important book, and I do think it's a book people should read. This is a book that will make a lot of people uncomfortable, which is why I don't think it will win. But again, I do think that this is an important book. Yeah, are you telling them how important it is too? Come here. Mr. Kaladin wanted to come and say hello. Anyways, so yes, that is Looking for Jane. Solid 4 stars for me. I do think it's a great debut, and I do think a lot of people need to read this. This is the one that a lot of people who hadn't read any historical fiction, this is the one that intrigued them the most. But I do think that when you're thinking about the general public as it currently stands, this will make too many people uncomfortable for it to win. That's just where I stand with that. The other one that I've read is The House of Eve by Cicada Johnson. Now, Cicada Johnson wrote Yellow Wife, which was another very powerful historical fiction about Black women and about the way Black women are treated. This is a different time frame. This is one that's taking place in the 1950s. So we're following 2 women. So we have Eleanor and we have Ruby. And these are women who fall prey to the men in their lives, I guess is the easiest way to kind of word that. It's about how they are not easily accepted. So this is essentially just the story of Ruby and of Eleanor, and about how the decisions that they make and the people that they have in their lives affect how they live their life and what happens to them. Again, another one that is brilliantly written. I haven't read Yellow Wife yet. I still intend to. Cicada Johnson's writing is fan-freaking-tastic. And again, I think this is another one where sadly it's just going to make too many people uncomfortable. And that's really sad because this book is really, really good. Again, I would say this is like a 4.5 stars. Again, another one I think is very important for people to read because people need to understand how even within the Black community, people are treated differently depending on various things like how Black you are and financial status and things like that. And this book depicts that in a really brilliant way. And I think it's really, really well done. Definitely looking forward to reading more Cicada Johnson. And I hope she continues to end up on this list because I will intend to continue to read her. So those are the two from the top 10 that I haven't talked to you about yet, I believe. Let me double check. I now must go back and double check myself. Because yes, I already talked to you about the Echo of Old Books. I don't know why it says I haven't read that one. So I still need to read. Did you hear about Kitty Carr, Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, Lady Tan Circle of Women, and The Keeper of Hidden Books? Now, I might just have to buy the audiobook for The Keeper of Hidden Books because the wait for the library is insane on this one, so I don't think I'll be able to get that. And then the other 3 I already own. So I will shift gears, try to get a copy of Keeper of Hidden Books, and get to reading the other 3. Once I've read all of them, I'll tell you who I think will really win. As of right now, as much as I would love Echo of Old Books to win, I do still think it's going to be The Covenant of Water. I mean, Oprah blew up the book, so it's going to be kind of hard-pressed to have something else take it. I'd be shocked and surprised. I think the one that would have the best chance of stealing it away from The Covenant of Water is probably Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. It's by James McBride, which is a very notable author. And again, it was nominated, it won Book of the Year for Barnes & Noble. So I think a lot of people are picking it up right now because of that. And so once I get my opinions on the other 4, I'll be back. Hello. Good morning. It is like 7:30 in the morning right now. I'm heading into work, but I wanted to catch you up on what I've been reading. It's currently December 1st. So, The Keeper of Hidden Books, that's what it's called. So I finished this book since we last chatted, and honestly, for historical fiction, it's just fine. It didn't necessarily do anything bad. This is a case of someone looking after all of the books that would have been banned during World War II in Warsaw, Poland. So we're getting a different area than we normally see in a World War II historical fiction, but it very much felt like a World War II historical fiction. So if you haven't read a lot of World War II historical fiction, I could see this one being something that stood out to you. But in having read so much, comparing it to other World War II fictions that I've read, it's just kind of in the middle. It's not a bad book. It just didn't do anything to make it stand out from the crowd for me. So I'm surprised it made it through to the final round. The only thing I can think is we have a lot of younger readers now that haven't read a lot of World War II historical fiction. So that might be why this one stood out a little bit more. But, again, it's not a bad book. It was just fine. And to me, a just fine is a 3-star. Again, I don't think it necessarily did anything wrong. And it didn't do anything overly offensive other than be awful about Jewish people, which happens in any World War II historical fiction. So that was unsurprising. But yeah, when it comes down to it, it just didn't stand out. So I don't see this one winning, obviously. I have started Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? I'm about halfway through that, and I'm really enjoying it. This one feels like if Evelyn Hugo and The Vanishing Half had a baby, it would be this book. That's how this feels. Because it's very much about a Hollywood actress who was born to a black mother and a white father. She is very white passing. And so she chooses to live her adult life in Hollywood, white passing, but she ends up leaving her fortune to these 3 black sisters. I haven't quite fully made the connection on how they're connected yet, but how they're connected to her, other than their moms worked together on a show. But I don't know if there's more to it. I'm assuming there is. So that is what I'm going to be finding out here shortly. So I was actually further into Kitty Carr than I realized, and I just finished. So yeah, I figured out the connection between the women who inherited Kitty's money and Kitty, and it's about what I expected, honestly. This book was really good. Solid 4 stars. I would pick up something from Crystal Paul Smith again. I don't think it has winning quality to it. There was enough clunky, slightly unnecessary things within the story that I think it could have been edited a little more even, and probably been a little more concise, and it would have maybe been a 5 stars for me. But the story in general that was being told was really, really good, and you see how being white passing isn't all it's cracked up to be either, and it was just brilliantly done. I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend this book to other people, and if you've been interested in this story at all, I highly recommend picking it up. But the way that Kitty chooses to reveal her truth was interesting. I didn't necessarily agree with it in a way, but I did end up enjoying this one. Again, solid 4 stars. And I could see why people would have rated it 5 stars as well. I do think The Vanishing Half is a better look at this in a way. So if you want something about Black people passing as white, I think The Vanishing Half is a better discussion of it. It was just an interesting read, and I'm not sad I read it. Like I said, I was interested in it before I knew it was nominated. I'd already owned a copy, so I was just able to check out a library loan for it as well. So with that said, I'm now on to my 2 physicals, which are Lady Tan's Circle of Women and Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, because the audios are nowhere to be found through the libraries, and I'm not sure I want to pay for the audios. So once I have started and finished one of those, we will chat. Hello. So I need to update you guys on what's been going on with my Goodreads project here. Basically, this is going to be the last clip. So I did read Lady Tan's Circle of Women. I thought this was a very interesting, feminist-forward historical fiction based in the 1500s in China about a woman who wants nothing more than to continue her family's desire to have female doctors. This is one of the first true female doctors in China, and you know, she's expected to marry and give all that up, but she doesn't want to. So it's kind of how she figures out the balance in her life that way. I thought it was very well written. I love Lisa C. I read The Island of Sea Women before by her, and I really enjoyed it. So I would definitely recommend picking this one up. Again, I don't think it's going to usurp my favorite. It's a 4 star. I ended up really enjoying this. Like, there's nothing bad about this book. If you've read Lisa C before and you like it, you will still love this one. I'm glad I own a physical copy. I do think that's one that I will reread and eventually annotate in future. But for now, it's a solid 4, and I really enjoyed it. So the last one I have here is The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. Now, I have soft DNF'd this half the way through. Let me explain why. It's not that this is a bad book. I think this is a very well written book. I think it's brilliant in the story that it's trying to tell. The problem is we're dealing with very, very heavy topics in this one. We are dealing with Black racism. We are dealing with a Jewish community and the, prejudices against them. We're dealing with an abandoned orphan child and the government trying to take them away. Like, there's a lot of heavy topics going on here. And my depression is pretty bad right now, which is why you haven't seen as much content from me lately. So I have soft DNF'd this for now because it was making me more depressed. And as much as I wanted to finish it for the sake of this project, I'm putting it down for now for my own mental health. I'm sure you all will be okay with that. But I wanted to clarify that it's not a bad book. and I will eventually come back to it, maybe in small spurts rather than in big chunks like I was trying to do for this project. But for now, I've put that book aside because I need a break from it. So with that said, my favorite of the top 10 is still The Echo of Old Books by Barbara Davis. I think this book is brilliant. You can check this one out from Kindle Unlimited, and it is the KU like ebook checkout as well as the audio checkout, and I did the audio mostly, and I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it that way. So of all of them, that is my favorite. Now, do I think it will win? No. I would be shocked if it did. I would be pleasantly surprised if it did. But if we're going by strictly what I think is going to win of what's left of this top 10 now that I've read them all, it's going to be Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. Oprah blew up this book. This is a book that, as an employee at Barnes & Noble, we were encouraged to make sure our customers knew about it. I wouldn't say we were forced to sell it because we weren't, but it's one that Barnes & Noble said, hey, make sure you have a shelf talker, make sure you're talking about this book. And it's one that I, in my store, have seen a lot of people buy. So for that reason, I do think this is going to be the winner. Do I wish that was the winner? No. It's a really gorgeous, brilliant book in its own way. Again, that's another one that I gave a solid 4 stars, and I can understand why people love it. But it was just not a great one for me. It was good, but it wasn't great. The Echo of Old Books approached a World War II style story in a way that barely touched the war, and it just takes place during that time and how the war affected people, not necessarily going and serving in the war throughout the course of the book, but like how it affected high society and things like that. So here is my personal ranking of all of these books. And then here is the ranking of how I think it's going to look on Goodreads. So with that said, I will come back once in a couple of days when they drop the winners. They're dropping it the night of the 6th, and I have that day off. So I'm going to quickly do a reaction and add it to the end of this video so that you guys get my live reaction to the winner. And yeah, then I'll come back and we'll see if my predictions are correct or if I'm pleasantly surprised. I will see you in that one. Okay, friends, the results are in. Let's go check it out. Let's see how it ended up going. So we're going to view the results. It looks like Yellowface won for fiction, which is fantastic. It's the one I expected to win. Historical fiction. Wayward, interesting. That was like my least favorite. I really did not like Wayward. I am surprised that took Covenant of Water. Wow. By like 15,000 votes. That's insane. And then Echo of Old Books was like in the middle of the pack. Okay. And then looking at all of them. Yeah. A bunch of those were lower. But yeah, Did You Hear About Kitty Carr was fantastic. So it went a little different than I expected. I am not necessarily shocked. I know that I am an outlier when it comes to Wayward. So yeah, I'm just shocked that Wayward beat out Covenant of Water. And the only thing I can think is Wayward came out in like January, so more people had an opportunity to read it. And it's also 300 pages as opposed to the almost 700 that the Covenant of Water is. So with that said, friends, that is going to be the end of this video. I'm not going to react to everything. If you want to see all of my reactions, I'm reacting live with friends here in like less than 10 minutes. I'll leave that linked down below so you can check that out, and we will see everything else. And again, all of my friends that have been part of this collab project for Goodreads over the last like year and a half, well, a little over a year, they're all linked down below. They're all amazing. Please go check them out if you haven't. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire long video. If you are here just because you love me, leave a bird emoji down below for Wayward, since Wayward won. and I will see you guys in the next one.